What is up, Canada? What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here. And in today's video, first, you're going to notice a couple of things differently. I'm standing up. We've slightly changed the background. Really appreciate your feedback. I've now got a monitor in front of me as well. So hopefully it looks like we're making eye contact a little bit more these days. And really excited to dive into today's subject matter, which is going to be talking about some COVID-19 benefit updates, as well as getting into the actual new program called HASCAP, all the details behind that. So in today's video, you can look forward to, did you know there is an actual new federal loan program available to us small business owners? And how many millions of dollars worth of CERB do you think Canadian teenagers got in the last year? As well as how does a person allegedly swipe $11 million in COVID-19 benefit money from the Ontario government and then give it back without being charged yet? There's some weird things going on here. So let's talk about some of these weird stories today and get into it. So the first story I want to talk to you guys about today is HASCAP. So if you haven't been paying attention, you've got a new acronym now to memorize. So HASCAP, specifically on Monday, February 1st, the Highly Affected Sectors Credit Availability Program, HASCAP, will open for applications. I'm just curious now at this point in time, whoever's in the abbreviations department in the government, they're making big bucks because they're working overtime on these acronyms for us. This new federal loan program is targeted towards small businesses that have struggled as a result of COVID-19. And so if you're interested in learning how to qualify for HASCAP, we're going to have a link in the video description down below. But here's a quick little summary. A business must prove it was financially stable and viable prior to the pandemic. So if you started your business during the pandemic, the government's saying kind of go fuck yourself. And again, it is a tough situation to be in, and I understand that perspective. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments in this regards, though, because it is kind of frustrating, right? If you just graduated university and want to start your new business, you're not going to be applicable. Now, at the same time, if you could be applicable, there'd probably be a lot of opportunity for theft and fraud and bad actors to take advantage. So I'm not saying I've got a perfect solution, but I just like sharing my opinions, and I always love hearing your opinions in the comment section as well. So it also must have made payments from either the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, which is CEWS, that's the CEWS, or the Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, which was CERS, CERS. So in the 8-month period ahead of a business's HASCAP application date, a business has to show a 50% decline in revenues for at least 3 months, not necessarily consecutive months. Now, again, it's difficult when we're trying to line up these sort of metrics or requirements, but a 50% decline in revenues, that's a massive impact. I mean, you're probably going to be lucky if you're holding on for very much longer if you suffer a 50% or greater decline in revenues for 3 or more months in the last 8 months alone. So HASCAP details. The loan cannot be used to pay or refinance existing loans. So you can't use it to service debt, essentially. Funds are to be used to assist with regular operational matters like payroll and utility costs. So they don't want to see this going into capital investments. Low interest loans between $25,000 and $1 million are available with a repayment term up to 10 years. Hotel chains and restaurants with multiple locations are eligible for up to $6.25 million in assistance. Businesses can postpone principal payment at the start of a loan for up to 12 months, and HASCAP is available to businesses throughout Canada and for all sectors of businesses. The Government of Canada recommends that all interested applicants contact their primary lender in order to get more information and apply. So that's kind of it, really, when it comes to this HASCAP program. There's probably going to be more information come out. I'm curious to hear, as a small business owner, will you be applying to HASCAP? Do you qualify for HASCAP? Do you think the qualifications are appropriate for HASCAP as well? And what do you think about, the ability for larger hotel chains and restaurants with multiple locations to be able to get a much bigger dollar amount? Love to hear your thoughts and your opinions in that comment section. But let's move on to story number 2 for today, and that's talking about CERB and teenagers. So if you guys didn't notice, the National Post came out with a great story. We're going to link to it in the video description down below. But according to CRA documents obtained by Blacklock's reporter, more than 300,000 teenagers received a combined $636 million through the Canada Emergency Relief Benefit. So that's CERB. So the documents show 40,630 15-year-olds were approved for CERB. In all, 81.2 million was doled out to this age bracket. So that's interesting. I guess I never really thought about how young you could, in theory, be and apply in order to get this. So at 15, to see $81 million go out, really interesting. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts and opinions are on that. And then the document also showed that, meanwhile, 92,784 16-year-olds got a total of 186 million. So about double the money. And then 184,576 17-year-olds were provided with a total of 369 million. So really interesting just to kind of know some of the numbers again. I don't actually have too hard of an opinion on this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. We just thought it was kind of interesting to be able to share this with you. But again, obviously the pandemic was tough for a lot in the 15 to 25-year-old age group. And Stats Canada, has shown that from February to March of 2020, 873,000 people in this group lost jobs. So doesn't seem quite so shocking when we hear about 300,000 applied if 800,000, almost 900,000 lost their job. In fact, sounds like only a third applied. So kind of curious what's all going on there. And then by April, another 385,000 had lost either a large number of hours at their job or lost employment altogether. So a reminder of some of the CERB details. CERB was available to Canadians from late March 2020 to December 2020, and it essentially dropped the E. In 2021, it's getting lean, mean, fighting machine sort of acronym now. And beyond that, it provided financial assistance to those whose employment and financial situations were negatively impacted by COVID-19. Those approved for the benefit were given $500 a week for a maximum of 26 weeks. And CERB was accessible to people 15 years of age and older who earned more than $5,000 in 2019 or the 12-month period leading into the first CERB benefit application. So the National Post reports that as of October 2020, 8.9 million Canadians applied for CERB, resulting in $82 billion being paid out. $82 billion. It's kind of fun to get to say those numbers, but it's really scary when you actually say that out loud as a Canadian. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. I mean, 8.9 million Canadians. How many Canadians are there that are even considered in the workforce, right? I would have thought our workforce was like 20, 25 million, maybe 30 on the absolute high end. So I think no matter how you slice or dice that number, that's a big number. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that big number. And do you think, have we seen the full consequences of 2020 impacting our economy, or is there still more on the horizon? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions in that comment section down below. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you smash that like button. But let's move on to story number 3, which is an MP petitions federal government to forgive CERB payments. So Paul Manley, a British Columbia-based MP for the Green Party, has sponsored a petition requesting the federal government to forgive CERB payments. In December, the CRA sent out 441,000 letters to Canadians who collected CERB benefits but may not have been eligible for them. So let's take a step back there. We had a couple numbers in that previous story. About 9 million Canadians applied for it, and it sounds like 1 in 18 probably wasn't eligible. That's interesting that almost 5% of applicants probably weren't eligible. Anyways, recipients of this letter were warned they could potentially have to pay back thousands of dollars in benefits. This came as stressful news to self-employed individuals who believed they were eligible based upon their $5,000 gross earnings rather than net earnings. And we covered this story a little bit in the past, which is definitely causing confusion. And I imagine that this is why the Green Party is deciding to try and buy votes with this sort of crazy sponsored bill. So, however, they soon learned eligibility for this was actually $5,000 of those net earnings. So many people claim the CRA did not properly disclose this to the CERB applicants initially. I actually do sort of agree with that. After early denials, the CRA admitted to providing Canadians with incorrect information. It's kind of nice that at least they're admitting it, but they're kind of still saying not our problem. And then at this point, the government of Canada does not plan on forgiving CERB payments. Manley and the 7,312 people who signed the petition believe this is unacceptable. And here's a quick little quote from Manley. So the government made an error and it needs to own that error. That is why I have sponsored this petition brought forward on behalf of self-employed Canadians who are impacted. They are calling on the government to retroactively allow self-employed Canadians to use their gross pre-tax income before business expenses when determining their CERB eligibility. It's the fair thing to do. Fair is a difficult word. So there's no winners when the word fair comes out. I'll just always say that right off the bat. But the petition argues Canadians who applied for the CERB in good faith should not be penalized for eligibility errors or misguidance that occurred on the part of the government. It was unclear that, it's unclear what's going to come of this petition. Who knows? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think those that weren't eligible should get it? should we be giving out free lunches, or do you think that we should actually be holding people responsible and kind of still implementing the rules, even if they weren't clearly communicated in the first place? And then finally, let's talk about the civil servant who repaid Ontario $11 million in COVID-19 benefit money, who hasn't been charged yet. So Sanjay Madden didn't just create a computer application meant to help families and children access COVID-19 benefits for the government. He was hired to do that. He's alleged to have taken advantage of it also. According to reports by Global News and the National Post, Madden, a former senior level IT specialist with the province, has repaid the more than $11 million Ontario says he fraudulently took while on the job. No criminal charges have been filed, while an unproven civil claim is still in motion. The claim alleges that Sanjay, along with his wife and 2 adult children who all work for the government of Ontario's IT department, let's stop right there, guys. Doesn't that sound just like a little too much family involvement there? If like literally you, your wife, and your 2 adult kids all work for the same department at the government? I mean, that seems fishy. Maybe we should look into some of our hiring processes, Ontario government. And hey, while you're at it, maybe you should also bring in your federal government buddies because of that Governor General situation. But we'll leave that for another conversation. So in multiple affidavits, the family says it was unaware of Sanjay's actions. The family lawyer says that the wife and children are victims, not villains. It is alleged that Madden's family illegally issued and deposited checks from a program created to make it more financially viable for parents to teach children at home. The province also asserts that the Maddens opened hundreds of Bank of Montreal accounts between April and May 2020. I'm sure they just accidentally stumbled into those hundreds of bank accounts. That sounds like an honest error if I ever heard one. And about 10,000 checks were then created for made-up applications. Again, that sounds like something you could easily... Oh, were these 10,000 checks for me or for someone else? I kind of forgot. I got confused there. No big deal, Sanjay's. And so Sanjay's wife... Shalini has said she discovered 1,074 Canadian bank accounts were created in her name. Just she wasn't aware of it. I actually don't know. I hope there's not 1,074 accounts made in my name I'm not aware of. That'd be embarrassing. She had opened 3 of them. So she does admit to opening 3 of them. So she was only taking a little bit, guys. She wasn't trying to take all the money. And the family's lawyer has said the Sanjay Madden, who is alleged to have behaved so inappropriately, is not the man they have known. They are still struggling to understand what prompted him to act as he did, and especially to have used his own family when doing so. I sure hope some charges come out of this. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, whether it's on the Maddens or any of the other shit that I probably talked about today that made you mad. Let me know in that comment section because I'm sure there's lots to get worked up about. But before we wrap up this video, I do appreciate those of you commenting, those of you smashing the like button, those of you that have been subscribing and discovering my channel organically. It's pretty rare these days people get to discover me organically, but we really do appreciate when accidentally the YouTube algorithm pushes us. So if you guys have found us for the first time, hit subscribe because the odds of you seeing us again is pretty low. I mean, just trust us on that. But anyways, let's jump into the comments. Appreciate Richard, Kevin, Brandon, and of course, our co-host here, the Hungarian Experiment, for being in the comment section. So what's up, Brandon? Richard said, would the government be able to use age as a factor in giving CERB? I believe that would be discrimination. Probably a good point there, Richard. And they crashed it. To great reset it, hashtag commies is Kevin's opinion. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What is your opinions? Are you concerned about this? Are you panicking over this? Or is this just more noise and you're focused on doing you? Let me know in the comment section. I have been enjoying these daily live news broadcasts because if nothing else, it's a reason for me to pay attention. I kind of think it's starting to become important to pay attention. A few years ago, I was of a different opinion, but here we are. Times have changed. Appreciate you guys. Smash that like button, and we'll see you in a few minutes because we got another video coming up, and it's on a subject matter a lot of you want to hear about. GameStop, or was it GameStop? I forget. I don't pay much attention to the news, but we'll see you in the next story.